Hey, 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 what's up, everybody? Happy Friday to you, and welcome back to the channel. Let's talk transit. Is it payday for y'all today? Are you excited about Friday, or is it just the off Friday? Hopefully, it's a good day for you, and it's going to be a good show today. I got my good friend Ian, and I'm going to bring him on right now. Ian is from Texas as well. We got all my Texas friends here lately have been online, but I've got Ian with us. He is a bus mechanic, and today is just going to be all about bus maintenance and talking through uh, bus problems or issues or anything. So if you got a question, uh, put your question in the comments, okay? And no, Ian, because he's the professional, will answer those questions for you. Let us know where you're from by putting that in the comments as well. I got some Michael Cintron. Is this one of your buddies on this morning? So welcome to the show. It's different today. We're doing it in the morning just to accommodate brother Ian's work schedule and day off, all that good stuff. So, Ian, hey, I just want you to tell us a little bit about yourself and what made you get into buses? Why do you love buses? Why do you work on them? It's all about you today, man. So you just take it away, and then I'll throw in some questions here and there, and also we'll have some folks do that as well. And we also have Rafik is on as well from New Jersey. Welcome, my friend. Good to see you again. All right, take it away, Ian.
So I didn't really ever plan on being a bus mechanic. I mean, but I started going to school here in College Station at the university, Texas A&M University, back in 2018, and they have a cool part-time job. Uh, it's the coolest part-time job on campus. That's driving the buses for the transit system we have here, and it's not a full-blown transit system like you think of in a city, but we have transit buses, and we run not 24 hours a day, but 18 hours most of the day to bring students and staff and stuff like that to and from campus is the main priority of our bus system. And anyway, you can be a part-time driver as a student, and it's a really cool gig because you
That
basically get to
is.
pick your hours. And so anyway, that's where I started. I hired on at the end of uh, in November of 2018, and then I completed my training by the beginning of 2019, and I was driving on my own. And I did that until the summer of 2020. Let me think. Summer of 2020. There was this was during COVID, or
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Um, an opportunity came up to work out in the bus shop where, because we do most all the maintenance on our buses in house, short of engine and transmission rebuilds because it's just too time consuming. But
Right.
all the maintenance is done in house at A&M on the buses, and there was an opportunity that came up where they were looking for some help in the shop, just doing basic maintenance. Because over the summer we do a lot of um, the big the big maintenance items. We call them PMDs,
Mm-hmm.
and anyway, basically changing the oil, checking everything on the bus, changing the transmission fluid, changing the differential fluid, everything. And so every once in a while, if they need help, they'll get students to come in and help them and do that kind of stuff.
Cool.
And so that's what I did. I started working out there as a student, and I've always sort of been mechanically inclined, and I've always liked to mess with
Mm-hmm.
trucks and cars and tractors and everything like that. So it was kind of just natural. And anyway, I really liked it, and there was a full time position open, and I was going through some career path changes, shall we say, with college,
Mm-hmm.
and didn't really know what I wanted to do. And this was a pretty cool opportunity, so I ended up interviewing for a full time job, and they accepted, or I hired on, and I've been working full time since no October. of 2020. Let me think. Let me get my years right. October 2020. Yeah, yeah, that's right. And
So
yeah,
do
I
they
love it.
send you like through a program like to get certified, like all that? Do you have to go somewhere, or did they just
So
right
most of the
there
training, and I
and
got my dates wrong. October
yeah?
2021. I've only been working out there for a little over a year.
Okay,
But anyway, that doesn't really matter.
no,
So as far as training and certifications, when I was a student, it's kind of on the job training when you first get started, and then as I progressed, I I don't know if you're familiar or not, but if you go to like a just any mechanic shop and they have that blue symbol, the ASE
mm-hmm,
symbol, Automotive Service Excellence, and it's a national um, organization, and they set forth a bunch of certifications for all the different kinds of repair shops there are, from light automobiles up to medium and heavy duty trucks. And there's even a category for transit buses. And so I started taking those tests, those certification tests, and it took a lot of. We have study guides and stuff, and it took a lot of studying, and you learn the most just by doing the stuff rather than the study guides. But I ended up
right,
getting all of my certifications that I needed to be what they refer to as a master technician in transit buses and medium and heavy trucks, because we work on transit buses, but also the university has trash trucks, big like compactor trash trucks,
really,
and
okay,
roll off dumpster trucks as well that we take care of. So we do a lot besides just buses. So anyway, I got certified in all that, and but it's really, most of it though is just on the job, kind of learn as you go.
mm-hmm,
When I started, I had never changed, pulled off a rim with 10 lug nuts on it. I'd only messed with little cars and stuff, and my boss said, "There's a trash truck out there that it's got a bunch of flat tires. Pull it in and change the tires." It's like, okay.
okay.
And so I just figured it out. And you ask questions as you go along, and then as I gained more experience, I went to go get actually certified, or take those certification tests,
Right.
and
Okay.
that's how you kind of climb the ladder here.
So Ian, everybody has also started his own little side business, side hustle. I have a full time job, then I have a side
Yeah.
hustle as well. Driving charter buses. But I'm gonna put his card up here on the display for y'all. If you're in the area and you break down, or you just need some service, man, y'all jot down his email and his number. I'm going to put it back up here again later on in the show, but I'm just going to keep that up there for now so that if you're in Texas, going through Central Texas, and need some help, this is the man. I actually have Ian coming out to see me January. I was going to do it. Was it this Saturday or
I
next
think it was
Saturday?
this coming weekend.
Yeah,
No, it was
the
the following. It
following.
was the following.
Yeah.
Right.
I was going to have Ian come and work on my bus, do oil change and all that, show me everything about the bus and things like that. But I had a conflict. They needed me to drive a bus from my other job. So, but we rescheduled, I think, January. So we'll do
Yeah.
another episode of uh, live, with the bus and with him showing me things. And so hopefully it'll be helpful to you out there with if you have an RTS bus. Uh, Road Dog is on, and he is from Philadelphia. So, Road Dog, welcome to the show, man. We're glad you are on. If y'all have a question about an issue with your bus, I would encourage you to put it in the comments so that we can answer that. So, the past couple of weeks, there's been an individual talking about his bus on social media, Facebook, nice, clean RTS, I saw the photo and I'm just like, wow, that's a pretty sweet looking bus. And so, uh, can you maybe talk into that? Because he did email me and ask if there's anything we can do. And I've been keeping track with seeing the comments on
Yep.
Facebook. But maybe you can give us a little rundown of that and tell us how these different models are not all the same as what we think. So
Yeah.
go for it.
So I saw this guy's post, and he was saying that he was going down the road, and all of a sudden I guess his bus shut off, or he lost power to his 24-volt systems apparently. And so if you're not familiar, on RTS buses and all kinds of buses do this as well. We have Gilly Glow floors are the majority of our fleet at A&M, and they work the same way. But you have a 12-volt system and a 24-volt system. And so, for instance, your starter motor that starts the engine is usually going to be on a bus is usually going to be 24 volts. But all your like interior lights and your gauges and all kinds of stuff is powered off of 12 volts. So that's why you need two different systems, and every bus is different. That's why I can't say, for sure, this is powered always 24 volts. This is always 12 volts. But anyway, there's two distinct systems. And so normally on older stuff, they'll frequently, I know our Novas, they would have these two, what they call 8D is the name of the battery size, 8D batteries. And they're these great big, ginormous, super heavy, clunky batteries. And there's two of them on each bus.
Mm-hmm.
And they're linked together in series, which means that your current flows from one battery to the next and doubles the voltage, as opposed to parallel, which would double the current. But anyway, what you have is you have two batteries, and one cable comes off the first battery to give your 12-volt loads their power, and then that battery jumps to the next one, and then it has a cable coming off of it for 24-volt loads. And anyway, I tried, he has an RTS bus, a Nova RTS, and it's similar to what Texas A&M had. We no longer run those style of buses. Right. We retired them. But I have access to some schematics for our retired buses, and I attempted to try and go through my schematics and see, all right, he's getting 24 volts, and his batteries are okay, or so he reports.
Mm-hmm.
But his multiplex system is not coming to life. And so the multiplex system on most modern buses, if you think of a vehicle, any car going down the road will have, modern car will have a body controller, and different manufacturers may call it other things, a PCM, or even sometimes the engine computer, or just the main vehicle computer will control body systems on the car. So transit buses have a lot of systems, electrical systems. And so what engineers have done is they've created this multiplex system. It's a network of body controllers that use logic that's programmed into them. They're just computers, and they take inputs from switches and sensors and all kinds of different stuff, and they run it through logic and create outputs based on that. So, for instance, I'll give you an example. If you go to any modern bus and try to hit the starter, hit the engine start switch to turn the starter and start the engine, but you are not in neutral, it won't do anything. And that is, on a car, you have a neutral safety switch, and it goes, and obviously different manufacturers will do it differently. But on a bus, if you're not in neutral, you try to start it, it's not going to let you. That is a function of the multiplex system and its logic that's programmed into the multiplex system that's preventing, it's getting that input from the starter switch, but the logic that's programmed into the multiplex system is saying, hey, wait, I can't send this output to power the starter solenoid because we're not in neutral. And so it won't send an output to the starter. Click it in neutral, hit the starter switch, and you should be good to go as long as everything's functioning correctly. So there's an example of how that logic works. And it's just computers. It's all like solid state computers. And anyway, so I had him track down a few different, test a few different power sources. There's some studs in this electrical panel behind the driver's seat. that provide 12 and 24 volts, and I believe there's a ground stud in there as well. So he checked all of those, and he says that they're all good. But his in that panel is also what's called the master bus controller, which is kind of the main multiplex module.
Mm-hmm.
And he says it's not lighting up at all. It's not doing anything. And I had him check and see if it's getting power, because it has a power feed coming into it, like a big thick wire coming into it, power and ground. But it also, the other thing that it needs is it needs to wake up, because what these do is when you shut the bus off, the multiplex system doesn't go to sleep. It doesn't turn off right away. It actually stays awake for a few minutes after you turn the engine off.
Interesting.
And so that's why when you turn the engine off and you still have your interior lights on, they'll stay on in most cases, or at least on ours, because the multiplex system hasn't gone to sleep yet. And after about 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it's set to do, the lights will shut off on their own regardless of what you do. And that's when the multiplex system goes to sleep. And it's the same way when you go to start the bus, the multiplex system is supposed to get a kind of a wake up signal from the ignition, and in order to wake up and start doing things. And I think he's not getting a wake up signal, but and I was trying my best to help him, from a distance, but unfortunately I don't have schematics. His setup is different from what I'm familiar with and what I have schematics for.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't look at a schematic and see, like, okay, it's the blue wire coming from here and it's labeled this number and this is where it's going to be. I can't do that with his bus because I don't have an accurate schematic. And unfortunately, on something as complex as a transit bus that has a multiplex system, it's very, very difficult, if not impossible, to diagnose certain electrical problems without accurate schematics. And it's not like an old carbureted car where,
right.
It won't start. Well, it's, that's so simple. You have an ignition switch that just switches power, and you have a starter solenoid, starter relay. You have a few basic things that on almost all different manufacturers you can check, and they're all the same.
Mm-hmm.
But on a transit bus, it's not quite. And, you could have an internal problem in the multiplex module. We have that happen a lot because they just sit out in the heat when the bus isn't running, and heat just bakes electronics. And every once in a while we'll get a bad multiplex module. It's internally shorted or something, like the solder on some contacts in there has melted together or something, and it's not functioning properly. And the only repair is to take it out and replace it, send it off to be repaired. So it's difficult when I'm not there, and especially when I don't have accurate schematics. So right. I meant to continue responding, but I was running around at work actually when I was walking between buses that I was fixing, and I would get on my phone and try to make a comment. And so I kind of just ran out of time, and then to try and help him. And I feel bad, and I'm going to try and go back there and see if I can be of any more assistance. But like I said, these issues, and chances are it's a very simple issue. It usually is. When it's something like this, it's not usually going to be a very complicated issue. It's a matter of finding it, though.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do find it, it's going to be like, oh my gosh, like,
wow, yeah.
I can't believe how simple that was. That's usually how it goes.
I know Rafiq says, he got a service manual with his bus, and yeah, I wish
is
so far. Yeah, that's something you just hold on to,
it's priceless. Yeah.
So I'm hoping my bus will be somewhere similar to the schematics that y'all have, and I think it'll be easy, So okay, great.
Yeah, it's you can learn a lot from the service manual, even just basic stuff. They'll go over all of the basic procedures, maintenance procedures, and torque specs, and all kinds of cool stuff. You can learn so much from the service manual. It's packed full of information.
Cool. I'm gonna put Sean's photo of his bus back up. This is his bus that he posted, Sean Walden, and it's a clean paint job, looks good, and man, we hope you get that all fixed. You know, you hate to see your baby down, you know, and because this thing, you know, I would drive this all day long, you know, around town. So looks really good. So hopefully, you get that issue fixed. And tell us about what we should look for when we're purchasing or after we purchase the bus, because I mean pretty much I don't know many people that go and check out a bus before they buy it. Some people do, but I don't have that time, and you know you just take
Yeah.
that gamble, and then by the
Yep.
time you get to it, your fingers are crossed that it's good. uh, but you really should go check it out, to be honest. And so, but tell us
Yeah.
some main things that you gotta check out, you know.
So it's it's like buying a used car, but everything's bigger and everything's more complicated. Everything's more expensive.
Yes.
so so what I'll say about buying a used bus is you have to understand that these things are they're designed to be run every day
Mm,
and run hard, and that's exactly what happens. They don't get babied, at least at A&M. Drivers are not easy on them. um, we maintain them regularly. We bring them in at scheduled intervals to maintain, but it doesn't change the fact that drivers will wreck them and run stuff over, and you know take rip off lights on trees, and you know but mechanically these things, the drivetrains and stuff are very stout, very robust, and the brake systems, as long as they're well maintained, very, very robust. Air brakes seem complicated, but air brakes are actually extremely simple and very redundant. And by that I mean, if you have a failure in your air brakes, there's really no way that you won't be able to stop. Like,
okay.
even if you have a catastrophic failure on your service brake side, you can pop the parking brake and come to a stop. Like, and that never happens. But
Mm-hmm.
um, transit buses are designed to last a long time. With that said, by the time that, especially A&M, by the time that A&M is ready to get rid of a bus, it is already past its expected
Uh,
life, which generally in
I
the
think we, yeah.
industry, generally in the industry, they like to go by 12-ish years is the expected lifespan, service life of a transit bus.
Mm-hmm.
Now, these RTS buses that A&M sold were from 2001, 2002, so you can do the math and
Yeah.
realize that they were a few years past their
Right.
expected life. Um, so anyway, things to look for. Um, Obviously, check all your fluids, um, oil, antifreeze, transmission fluid. Check your transmission fluid while the bus is running at low idle, if you didn't know. Um,
Ah.
Check for leaks. All these buses are going to have oil leaks of some sort. Um,
Yeah,
it's
like
just,
mine.
yeah, it's just the severity. Like, there are some oil leaks that are a lot less bad, a lot less worrisome than others. For instance,
So,
if you
question
have,
on hold that thought for a second.
sure,
So, I have an oil leak, and one of the reasons, you can see it. Actually power washed it, to make sure to see where it's coming from. But you then see the back of the bus. Is now if it's all over the
it's
back of the
all
bus, is that bad? Like little dots everywhere, or is
not
that
necessarily. It'll
okay?
just wash off. But that's just what happens when you're going down the road and all that wind kicks up from below the bus
Uh huh.
and
Okay.
kind of creates I don't know what the word is for that vortex behind the bus
Mm-hmm.
and splatters all that oil. Um, but there's some oil leaks that you don't really have to worry about, and then there's others that are very concerning. For instance, if one of your front or rear crankshaft oil seals is leaking, that's a big issue. Um, and anyway, but like a minor seep from the valve cover is not really something to be concerned about
Mm-hmm.
unless you really, really want to. But you look for oil leaks. If you can get someone who's at least mechanically inclined, if you can hire like a mechanic or something to come out, even just a car mechanic, they'll know like obvious things to look for.
Yeah.
But you want to look underneath the bus. You really want to get underneath the bus if you can do so safely.
Mm-hmm.
They'll get under a bus if you don't know what you're doing. Really shouldn't get underneath the bus at all. uh, is what I should say.
Right. I guess you normally lift it up.
Because we normally lift them up.
Or
And you'll really probably be fine, but they have air suspension at any time. At any time, a leveling valve could fail or something, and down comes a bus, and you don't want that to happen. So, but really, if you can, at least take a peek underneath. Just check out the general condition of the frame, see if it's all rusted out. You don't want to buy a rust bucket. I promise you, it's going to be a headache down the road. Everything, especially up north, y'all up north with road salt and stuff. We have a few secondhand buses that we have in our fleet that were refurbished, but they came from up north in the salt belt or in the rust belt, and I won't go too far into that, but they are a nightmare. They are an absolute nightmare. If you buy a rust bucket, you will regret it. So get under there, look at the frame and airbag mounts where the airbags meet the frame. Check those out because you really don't want those breaking. That's a big issue. Okay. So anyway, just the general condition of the bus.
So Mr. Gentle Friend says you need FaceTime services. That's something you should think about. It's like
FaceTime services, yeah.
Or just
consulting.
I mean, or still, hey,
yeah,
it'll be $50 for me to walk through your camera. I don't know, something.
No,
I think
that's a good idea.
Great,
that's a good idea.
A lot of folks probably. I mean, it's not like we have money laying around to go to a shop and have them look at it, inspect. So just, I mean, as a side business there, and then Night Critic says, "Good morning. He has a 2001 Nova bus. Where do you get parts from?" Well, I'll let you answer that.
So unfortunately, you can't just go to Nova.com
right
for these old things and say, "Oh, I need a shock or I need a airbag or something." What you have to do is, if you don't have the service manual will, actually the service manual won't have the part numbers. The parts manual, all the manuals are separated. You have a service manual, parts manual, and a wiring schematic are all distinct manuals. But anyway, if you don't have those, what you're going to have to do is just go and try to find a part number that's on a sticker or etched into the part, and get on Google, search that part number, and you're going to have to get it from some third-party vendor. But a lot of the stuff is still readily available. Airbags for Novas are still readily available because they're somewhat standard. Airbags are usually somewhat standard parts, used between different applications is what I mean by that.
Right.
Like for instance, we still have Millennium RTSs in our fleet, which are very similar to Novas, but also very different in a lot of ways. But they use the same airbags, so that's what I mean by that. The airbags are still in production, and that's just one example. But you're gonna have to, if you don't have the parts manual, see if you can ask around and see if anyone has. I know that there's parts manuals floating around for these old buses on the internet and in these groups and stuff. But otherwise, you're just going to have to go to what you need to replace and get a part number off of it if you can.
Okay.
And that's my best advice on these old things.
So, coming from an outsider to an insider, where you work for an agency or the school and all that, are all buses that go to auction bad? Or are there some that you let go and like, hey, that's really good. I mean, I know it's, you work for your school and all that, but just in general, do you as a mechanic? If you can
Not
answer
necessarily. No,
it.
not all buses are bad that go to auction. Now, I will say that some that have gone to auction in recent years have been
Mhm.
very bad.
Yeah.
But you'll know, like the one we auctioned off because it dropped a valve out of the cylinder head and catastrophically destroyed the engine. But that
Hmm.
was clearly in the pictures. Like, you
Yeah.
know, it stated, you know, they weren't trying to hide anything.
Right.
But the a lot of the Novas we got rid of were most of them were still in good running order. You know, they could run and drive on their own. We were just phasing them out because we got 35 new low
Hmm.
floors. And so what we generally speaking, what we did is we got rid of the worst ones first. So, like, for instance, if one broke down and it was a catastrophic failure, like it needed a rear end or it needed, I don't know, an engine work or something, and what, you know, we knew we were about to get these 35 new buses, we would just go ahead and decommission it. So some of the first ones to go were pretty bad. um, but
That's probably
it,
a good thing to know. Like when you start seeing buses from agencies going to auction, like maybe wait on the second batch.
and like, yeah, maybe it
Maybe,
depends
you know.
how they, it depends what they're doing, what kind of
Yeah.
replacement plan they're on.
Hmm.
But I know in our case, it when we knew these new buses were coming, they started to say, well, why would we sink 10 grand into this bus that we're gonna not even have for another
Right.
year? Let's just go ahead and get rid of it now. But for some of the later ones, once we started getting those new buses in, um, they started just decommissioning them because we didn't need them anymore because
Mm.
they had a replacement. So, and I couldn't tell you which ones
Right. Yeah.
were which, you know, but that's sort of generally how it worked, with a few exceptions, obviously. But so the answer is no, not all auction buses are bad, but you do have to do your research, and if you
Right.
can get someone to go look at it, and really do your research, know what you're looking for. Bring a
Hmm.
list is what I'd recommend. Bring a list of things to check. Um, Tires on buses are a pretty expensive item. Luckily, if you bought an A&M bus, we go through tires like you wouldn't believe.
Right.
So none of our tires are going to be dry rotted because they've all been
Hmm.
replaced like in the last year or two. um,
Yeah, and I was amazed by that. I had bought one of those from y'all, and I guess part of me is like, I guess you guys, there's no point in taking the tires off. I mean, just sell it, just let it go, you know. And maybe I'll take new tires. I don't know, but I was really pleased with the tires
yeah.
on
Well,
mine.
we go
And
through them like crazy because,
wow.
I mean, if they don't run out of tread on the right side, on the curb side of the bus, the drivers will, they always scrape up against the curb with the sidewall.
Hmm.
And one of our number one, if it's not low tread, I'm changing tires because there's steel showing on the
Hmm.
sidewall. The steel cords that make up the sidewall of the tire become exposed, and that's really dangerous. So we change those out right away. But that happens all the time.
Right.
I
Yeah.
probably change on average 10, 15 tires a week, just me,
Wow. Wow.
on busy weeks.
Tell us something you really love about what you do. Tell us just what you love about it.
I love that I come in every day, and it's usually, there's repairs outside that are waiting need to be done, but
Mhm.
it's just the not knowing what's going to happen that day. Like, you know, we go on service calls as well. We don't just stay in the shop. If a bus breaks down on the road, we go and rescue it. We go out
Okay.
there and figure out what's going on,
Hmm.
see if we need to tow it or not. Most cases, we can at least limp it home.
Yeah.
But it's just the challenge of not knowing what I'm gonna have to do that day.
Hmm.
You know, am I gonna have to go, you know, rescue a bus that's stuck in the middle of 3 lanes of traffic
Right.
because its brakes locked up or it ran out of fuel?
Hmm.
I just don't know. Or
Yeah.
I've had to go to the dump before, because one of our trash trucks was stuck out there with an issue. So if you've never been to a dump before, I can tell you it
Oh, I
smells
have.
about as bad as
I did a science
as
project back in middle school. Went to the dump. I'm like, yeah, I won't do that
yeah.
again.
It smells about as bad as you would expect.
Yes, yes. Somebody
Um,
has a question. Let's post it. I have a question about rear end gearing. I like to change the gearing to reach. Maybe.
so rear end gearing, that's the that's the way to, a lot of people will buy old buses and they're geared low, um, because that most transit buses are not really designed for the highway. They're designed to go around, like our most of our buses never go above, they very rarely go above 30 miles an hour. Most of our
Mm,
routes don't go above, don't have speed limits above 25, 30 miles an hour. So they're not really designed for highway use. That's why they're geared
mm.
so low. But
But is there a
like you
way
said, one of
that
your
you can go ahead? Is there a way it can be
yes,
changed
yes.
without like
So
spending thousands of dollars?
no,
Oh, dang. Okay.
no. So what you have to do, um, you can't you can't really change any of the gear ratios in the transmission. That's pretty much fixed. That is
Hmm.
what it is. The transmission stays the way it is. What some people opt to do is go and change the ring and pinion ratio in the rear axle, the driven axle, and um, that's a pretty expensive process because unless you can find a super cheap used um, unit like a ring and pinion or a we call them third members, or and there's all kinds of different words for them or terms for them. But unless you can find a super good deal on a used axle, you know, ring and
Right.
pinion
Yeah.
setup, you're going to have to go out and find one. And Maddie just said in the comments, she made a good
Yeah.
point. This fellow Ron Stevens, he actually did it with his bus, so he might know a little more than I do because we don't do any re-gearing. We just I've never had to. We had to do a lot of rear ends on the Novas, but that was before I worked there, so I didn't do any. But I will tell you, it's not going to be cheap. It's not going to be
Mm.
easy. Um, there's not like any just you can't just go in on a computer and change a setting. It's not like that. You can raise
Right.
the govern speed if you have the correct scan tool, um, depending on the engine manufacturer that is. But
Hmm.
as far as the the highway speed, maximum achievable speed, you you have to, yeah, you're gonna have to change out that rear end, and that's very expensive, and it's not just something you can do in your driveway.
Hmm.
Very
Okay.
heavy. um, it's not a DIY thing.
Mm.
I mean, unless you're absolutely crazy and you have a lot of time and you don't mind getting
Woo.
extremely dirty, making an absolute mess
Yeah.
of your driveway. Yeah.
Wow. I don't know who Joseph Grimm is, but I guess he's saying you came to rescue bus
Yeah,
616.
Joseph. He's a. I used to drive with him. He's an old A&M
Uh,
driver.
okay,
And
awesome.
so one day we had a bus. It didn't run out of fuel. It was having fuel injection pump problems, and it was getting ready to turn onto one of our major roads here in College Station off of campus, and it died.
Ooh.
It just shut off, and they couldn't restart it. So we went out on a service call, me and my boss, and we tried to get it going. And usually they run out of fuel. So what we'll do is if you don't know, when a diesel runs out of fuel, you have to reprime the fuel system and get all the air that's trapped
Oh
in the
yeah.
fuel system out. So usually what we'll do is we'll pull off the fuel filters there in the engine bay, top them up with diesel, make sure the fuel tank is full, the main fuel tank, and then take a little bit of starting fluid, ether, and just put a very modest amount
Yeah.
of ether into the intake. I'm kidding. We put a lot of
Okay.
starting fluid. We put a lot of ether in the intake,
Ooh.
and get it started, because if if you've ever dealt with that before, you know it can be a
No.
really big pain in the butt to
I
deal
hope to
with
never.
a diesel engine that has run out of fuel. So anyway, we couldn't get it going. Something else was going on that was not a side of the road fix. We had to tow it,
Hmm.
but we had to get it out of where it was. So my boss hopped in the our service truck, and I hopped in the bus and steered. I released the parking brake and he just pushed me because where we were, we couldn't just leave it. It was a turn lane. We had to get
Oh
out of the
man,
way.
yeah.
So he pushed me onto the main road, and I was just steering, getting pushed, and he pushed me onto the next road where we could park it and wait for this tow truck. But it was just, I think there's a video floating around somewhere. It
Wow.
was really funny looking back, because it's a pretty major road, and he just kind of pushed me into the road. And I've actually, that same road, we had to pull a bus with a chain out of the road
Mm,
because it died in the middle of the road. That was another thing where the starter
wow.
cable welded to the frame. Um, but yeah, all kinds of crazy stuff.
Wow. Well, man, you shared a lot of information with us today, and I know you got your schedule, and it was a short podcast today, but we're going to continue this talk on bus mechanics, maintenance, all that in January when he comes, and uh, I have my cameras and all set up at the storage unit to where you can just see, you know, maybe I'll find out some issues that I have with the bus, um, and we'll go from there. And so, but Ian, man, I'm so glad you came on today.
Thank you for having me.
Somebody says had to be difficult if you had no power steering. Oh, definitely, yes. That's what yeah, turning a
Yeah,
bus with no power steering. So
those are some big wheels to turn without power steering. Once you're going, it's not that bad, but if you're not moving very fast, it's very very difficult. I've had to
yeah.
steer a few buses around that had steering gearboxes that blew out, and that's very difficult.
And then someone, Night Critic, is asking anyone have a rear bumper cover. I can't find them anywhere. Um, Someone says
Hmm.
on eBay. One on eBay. There's one on
eBay or
eBay.
someone with a 3D printer. I don't know.
Yeah, that's just hard. I mean
It's
that
tough.
bumper. Yeah,
I don't know. Those bumper covers are, yeah. I don't even
I,
think we can get them anymore.
I bet.
I think we might have a few on the shelf, but
All right, Michael says for the regearing, how do I know what parts to acquire for the ring and pinion so I can start my hunt? And I'm crazy enough
so
to work on this in my driveway. Laugh out loud.
you're a brave man. Um, you're a brave man. I would not do it in my driveway.
Woo.
So you need to find out who manufactured that axle. Um, if it's Rockwell or what are some other major Meritor is another axle manufacturer. And anyway, you need to figure out who made the axle, and then get on the internet and just start searching for Rockwell or whatever the manufacturer is, ring and pinion, or third member assembly. There's all different terms, and it's probably going to be pretty hard to find. I'm going to be honest with you.
Mm,
What you might end up having to do is call like a local truck shop that sells truck parts and stuff. Call them with model number, serial number off of your axle, and see if they can help you. I'm going to be honest though; it's probably going to be pretty hard to find. Um, I'm sure they're out there, but it's
yeah.
probably sitting on a shelf somewhere. It's not just going to be on some easy to access website. And I could be wrong. It depends who made the axle and how common that axle is. But I just want to warn you, it might not be as easy to source parts for as you
Mm,
think, and you might get a little bit of sticker shock when you see the price.
yeah.
Um, but just be ready. You're going to, at the very least, you're going to need to have a means to raise the bus up enough to where once you get that assembly out, and I should clarify, you don't have to replace the entire axle. It's just that you can call it the pumpkin, that
Mm,
assembly in the center, the
yeah.
differential assembly, um, and it just kind of bolts onto the axle housing. Um, and the reason, and you can buy just the ring gear and the pinion gear by itself, but don't do that. You can, but you have to. If you do that, it's the same way on a light truck or anything with the same setup on a smaller scale. You have to shim the pinion gear as well as the ring gear, and get all the interferences for those gears set perfectly, or else it's going to fail prematurely and it's going to make noise and it's going to be a disaster. But if you buy it all as an assembly, it comes bearings and everything pre-adjusted, and that's how we have a few. And like I said, I haven't done one because we only really had issues with the Novas, but we have a few sitting on the shelf, and they're these great big assemblies. And I mean, you're going to need like a forklift to move it around. It's not light, or an engine hoist, but you're going to need to raise the bus up enough to be able to get that thing out of there once you unbolt it. So you need a suitable jack, like a 22-ton air jack or whatever. You can get them at Harbor Freight. And jack stands, you need to support it. You need to be safe about it because it's a lot of weight to be playing around with. So I'm just warning you mainly because it can get dangerous if you don't support the bus right, or you need to make sure you have the right equipment because you don't want to get hurt. It's playing with buses is cool and everything, but it's very dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. So I just want to warn you ahead of time.
Very good.
It's brave. It's brave, yeah. But please be safe. It's very dangerous.
I think about that even when I'm on the road, with mine. It's like, okay, I don't have a dispatch to call. Hey, I need you to come pick me up. I'm broken down here,
Mm-hmm.
So just all that, you're just always cautious, the moment like I got this check engine beep going on, the bus is running fine, but there's just beeping all of a sudden. And so I'm not going out of the area. I'm staying I'll just stay in the yard to just run it.
That's a good plan.
And it's fine, but I don't want to get stuck. Now I got a tow bill that I'm going to have to pay to get it back to the yard. So, but until you come and check it out, then, then I'll take it out of the gate again. But it still runs fine. I ran it from Plano, Texas, all the way down to Forney, with the beep happening. And I thought I was going to break down, but it ran fine. Did 63 all the way back home. So, lots of interaction. That's good today, everybody. Thank y'all for being on. Hey, if you haven't yet, like this video so we could just get the word out for people to come and explore, this transit talk that we have, and just talking about buses and the mechanics. I think the mechanic part is going to be really beneficial. And so, Ann, you have made a lot of people's day and made my day. And just to maybe have you here once a quarter or something, just, hey, if there's something, you guys should think about. And so I don't know if you saw this comment. Michael, I think, responded. He says, let me publish that. I see. Yes, I think I do that as a complete assembly instead of messing with tolerances. I am always concerned with something that heavy. Good. I used to be a wrecker or operator. Okay.
Well, cool. Awesome. For New York sanitation. You probably saw some crazy stuff then.
So, and Michael, you're welcome for getting those questions answered. Hey, you guys, I know you've been great interacting. I've got a brisket on that's like at that time where I've got to really watch that temperature to get it off. I put it on 11 o'clock last night, and I do not want to overcook this thing. I'm trying to get it just right for a party tonight. So, hey, Ian, I want to say thank you, man. I'm looking forward to meeting you in person.
Me too.
Here in a few weeks. And in the meantime, if y'all have questions, y'all can always email thetransitguy20@gmail.com. I know I have that up here somewhere. Let's see if I can post that. Here we go. Publish. If you got questions, or 2020, just email me, and we'll answer them on the show. Once again, y'all are awesome. Have a great day. Have a great Friday, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you, Ian, for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. See you guys later.